What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Capitalized Podcast. I'm Chris Casella, and as always, this episode is brought to you by our private lending company, Sharper Capital Partners. If you want to learn more about how Sharper Capital can help you build your real estate investing business, you can check us out at sharpercapital.com. I'm here today with Robert Mohan from Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm very excited about this conversation. Robert has been in the business world for many years and has an extensive background in building credibility packages and credit use cases for businesses of all types. Robert has been investing in residential rental properties, notes, hard money loans, and stocks and bonds for more than 20 years. And now Robert is focusing more on passive income strategies. Robert, was it you saying that you wanted to be the laziest investor anyone has ever met?
Absolutely. Lazy is a mindset that has a bad connotation, but in my case, I want to make sure that I'm not having to work that hard, that my resources are working hard for me, whether the resources are rental properties, whether it's a note, whether it's a dividend paying stock or some sort of a bond, or even a savings account that's paying out something. If you remember the books, what was it, the one where he said, start your purse to fattening. I cannot think of that, but you can read it in 30 days. Read one chapter every day. I think it's Og Mandino's the author. Start your purse to fattening. So save, 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 and then put the resources on deposit, whether it's in a rental property that will grow or something else that will grow for you. So you have the flexibility to do what you want during the day. Now, today, I've been texting with one of my friends in New Jersey. We're planning a future trip, actually two future trips together, and we talk about investing and deep due diligence. He did not know that there's a way to have an internet website track flight prices. He's worried about how the flight prices are going to change. And I was able to share that with him today. And we built our relationship. That's what I invested in today. Of course, I prepared for our time together today. I had some other personal issues with family members that are having some health concerns. But the time today was mine to do with what I wanted to. So I'm not sitting around laying back, taking a nap, twiddling my thumbs and drinking lemonade on the back porch. Lazy is more a mindset of, are you working hard or are you working smart? So that's one of the things that I wanted to clarify. It sounds sassy, is I want to be the laziest investor I know. But one of the things about investing I've seen over the years has made a really deep impression on me and several others is there was a book years ago called Multiple Streams of Income. Now, it's not relevant for you to necessarily go find the book, but you can. Maybe at the library, it may be on Livy or something like that where you can listen to it. The point of the book is don't rely on a single income stream. Now, if you're employed at, say, this factory down the road and the factory closes, your sole income stream just stopped. If you're running a company and that's the only money you make, something happens, we have a pandemic or something, and unfortunately, your income stream stops. So why not have multiple income streams? It just makes sense. One of your income streams could be putting funds on deposit at a savings account. That's an income stream. You might have a retirement. You might have Social Security. You might have royalties coming in from a book. You might have rents coming in. It could be from anywhere. But starting that purse to fattening by having multiple income streams really had an impression on me. And then got fired not once, but twice. And I can tell you, it stung both times. You don't want to be fired. I lost that income. And in fact, for one of those firings, I was so broke that I qualified for food stamps. Now, I wasn't on the street shaking a can, and I only qualified for that 1 month. And then the next month I had another job, so I wouldn't have qualified. But I was telling that story yesterday to somebody, and she said she and her husband had that same thing happen to them. And for them, it was just a different experience. Being able to qualify for food stamps, I don't want to do that again. It's fine. I'm not saying there's anything bad with it, but for me mentally, that had an impression on me, a very deep impression, and it motivated me to get going. So dig that well before you're thirsty. Have a backup plan. Have multiple streams of income.
Yeah, it's really important. And there's some people who are listening to this who are going to be at that point in life where they're ready to become more passive because they've done a lot of the activities that allow them that ability. There's going to be other people here who are just getting started, right? And they maybe have never invested in a rental property. They're new to real estate. They're new to any income streams at all beyond maybe a 9 to 5 or W-2. And one of the things that you and I were talking about before we hopped on here and started recording, and a major focal point of this call is how do you go out and start building relationships, specifically with maybe lenders when you don't have that money to get started, right? You need to go out and either get partners or you need to get lenders to lend you money in order to get up and running in the real estate world because real estate is a very capital intensive business. So if somebody is new and they're going to have to start shopping and building relationships with lenders and partners, how can they best present themselves and best prepare and increase their likelihood of actually establishing those relationships or getting an approval from those lenders?
I would say the first part of that would be assess your skills, set goals, and then go out and start talking to people. So let me flesh those three things out. Identify your skills using some sort of a tool. And I'm going to hold one up here because this is one that I did recently in preparation for this. It was part of a particular task that was semi related. And here are the questions it had that I think are worth ripping off. List your personal or professional accomplishments. I ended up with three for that particular exercise I was doing, but I came up with six. And I went to someone I trusted, in my case, my wife, and made seven actually, and made sure that I had not forgotten any because she thought of stuff I didn't and vice versa. The next thing is list activities you enjoy. Now, it's not that you're going to go to a lender and say, I like hiking. Do you like hiking? Let's be hiking buddies. That could be a point of connection, but it's something that might be human, a way to connect with other people. If it is hiking, in my case, it was travel, reading to learn, networking with like minds, and watching movies because I like the way people come up with stories and then put pictures to it. Now, surely one of those particular things might be a relatable point where a lender might want to say, oh, I like movies too. And then you've got a point to start talking and begin to build a relationship. I told the story about the flights just a few minutes ago. I didn't know my buddy didn't know how Google Flights worked. I thought everybody knew. Well, he didn't. I provided value to that relationship just by bringing that up today because that was a point of connection for us. The next question is, what are you interested in studying or learning about? That could be a useful question. What skills would you like to improve on or enhance? What new skills would you like to develop? And then, this can be tough. List some examples of compliments you have received about yourself or your work. The point of that exercise is think about what you excel at, what you're good at. And then as you go through that, which I'll admit was tough for me, I spent about an hour working through that. And you can see on here, I didn't get a huge bunch of writing on there. And there were actually 3 pages to that where I've just shown you one. That was an exercise. And the point of that was for me to see what are the things that I bring to the table. And then now let's think about the goals. If I'm very good at dog grooming, maybe I want to start a business in dog grooming. If I'm very good at dealing with people, maybe I want to manage property for other people. If I'm very good at numbers, maybe I want to do something that involves that particular skill. Or the flip side of that is maybe I hate numbers. I don't want to do that. I want to hire that. Maybe I hate dealing with people. I want to hire a manager to deal with that if it comes to rental property. Look at what you're good at and what you're not good at, and then see what opportunities in investing match up with those. And the things you're interested in today may not be the things you're interested in 3 to 5 years from now. And that's okay. Give yourself grace and willingness to be able to change. When I first started in rental properties, I would buy them and lease option them. Now ask me why.
Why is that?
That's that's the only skill I learned in the beginning. I thought it must be the right answer because that's the only one I knew. And then I met a guy probably 3 years later. His name was Don, and Don said, "What are you doing that?" Now, it was something where we could riff about it, and we had talked about something else and begun to build a relationship. I said, "Well, Don, frankly, that's the only tactic I knew. Well, haven't you heard about this? Haven't you heard about that?" Well, yeah, but I didn't study it. I just thought I'd already found the right one. He said, man, let me tell you what I do. And he explained a word picture of how he lived high up on a hill and all his rental rooftops were below down in the valley. He said, I wake up every morning and drink coffee and look out on the rooftops of all my rental properties that pay me every month forever. Huh. And I came home, talked to my wife, and we changed our strategy. We weren't doing lease options anymore. We were doing buy and hold. Now, it didn't happen that fast. It took a little bit of time, but I'm giving the expedited version here. That conversation completely changed where I was because he said, hey, do you need money now? Well, no, I've got a good job. I've got a good multiple income stream set up going over here. He said, then why don't you just keep them forever and let them pay you a little bit over time and count on appreciation? Well, why don't I do that? Because no one's ever put it to me that way. And I like your idea. Would you write that down and think about it? And
Yeah.
that's what happened. So we changed based on that conversation. It totally changed our trajectory.
Yeah, I there's a few things that I want to unpack from what you just said. And number one, first and foremost, I really like the idea of thinking about what skills you have and what you can bring to the table when you're first starting out in real estate, because the truth of the matter is you don't have skills in real estate more than likely, right? Maybe you've been working for somebody who flips properties, maybe you've been a property manager, maybe you've been involved in real estate and you're just transitioning to now becoming an investor yourself. But more than likely, you don't have specific skills in real estate when you're coming and asking a lender for money or you're looking to partner with somebody. But that doesn't mean you don't have any value to bring to the table. More than likely, you
Right.
have a ton of value, whether it's a
Right.
previous job, a specific set of knowledge, or specific skill set. And that stuff carries a lot of weight. And so preparing in that way to be able to have these conversations is really important, because one mistake that I see a lot of people make, and I've made myself, sometimes I continue to make it, is not understanding that what I bring to the table is valuable to somebody in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's not exactly what I think they're looking for, it's impossible to know that for sure without first valuing and understanding that you do have skills, you do have knowledge, you have something that you're bringing to the table. And without actually taking a step back and thinking through that stuff, sometimes it's not readily available when you end up on the phone with somebody or end up having a conversation.
Right. And going through that exercise also will build your confidence because you're about to go ask that lender out on a date. And if you remember how tough it was to go ask that person you really wanted to go out with that first time, how tough it was, this is probably that bad, but in a business sense. And this will help you realize, wow, I do have something to offer. And then once you go through that, then start talking to people. Ask other investors, hey, who do you use for your lending? Who might you recommend? And if you don't have that resource, join a local real estate investor association. And if you don't have a RIA, as they call it, an REIA, Real Estate Investor Association, in your area, or you don't like the one in your area you're involved with, go find another group of people, whether it's going to a conference or going to a meetup. Sometimes people will advertise their gathering on meetup.com or maybe on a Facebook site. Go be with other people who are in the world that you want to be in and start asking them questions, and then shut up and listen and take notes. Just take good notes and then start talking to the lenders and say, hey, I'm interested in XYZ with real estate. Is that something you would lend on? And then shut up and listen.
Right. The second thing that I found really insightful there is, let's say you're taking the plunge into real estate and you're just getting started. You mentioned thinking about what kind of things that you actually like. Now, it might not seem like a pertinent question if you're just getting started, because you may or may not know exactly what you like when it comes to real estate specifically. But you might know, hey, I really like numbers and I like being in the spreadsheets and I like doing the analysis, but I don't like the operational side. So I don't like having conversations with people or managing a project. Well, that's really important, because maybe you're going to go out and try to build a team as you invest in real estate. And who you bring onto your team is largely dependent upon what skill set you bring and what kind of stuff you enjoy doing. Because maybe you enjoy being out in the field and you're going to find that you enjoy managing projects and talking to contractors and building scope of works. But what you don't like is being in the spreadsheet. You don't like doing the underwriting. And so maybe you have a partner, or maybe you have another team member who is in charge of that kind of that part of the business. And that stuff carries weight with lenders too, and it carries weight with who you decide to partner with or build relationships with. So taking a step back and thinking, okay, what kind of skills do I bring to the table, and what kind of stuff do I actually enjoy? Those two questions are really important, and they carry a lot of weight, especially as you begin to build your team, and as you begin actually taking the plunge in real estate. You buy your first properties, or maybe you flip a couple properties, whatever you end up doing. I think both of those are really important.
I agree. I agree. I know when you're first building a relationship with someone, there's the initial pleasantries, and then it's crass, but they're going to ask, what can you do for me? Why should I still keep talking to you? Why should I keep investing with you? Because there might be someone more valuable over here. Again, that's crass, but we only have so much time while we're here at this event, or while we're here on this earth for that matter. What are you doing to get the most value from that? If I'm going to an event and there are 25 people in the room, how do I know who the most important people are I need to meet right now? So last Thursday, I think it was last Thursday, I went to a new real estate investor association I'd never been to. And I hit record on my camera and held it up so I could record the activity because I've done this elsewhere. And this time I wanted to actually try it again and get a recording of it. And it worked like a charm. And I went to the first person I met who was the door greeter and was very eager and very excited. And he said, "Hey, welcome to whatever the group's name was. What is your interest in real estate?" Well, that was the question I was going to ask him. So I gave him some answer, buy and hold rentals or something. And then at the end, when he was saying, "Hey, you need to go up here and check in," I said, "Well, wait a minute. Let me ask you who you are. What is your interest in real estate?" No one asked him that. His whole face just changed. "Well, it's this, really." And he went on a couple of minutes about that, which was fine. No one else was coming around. It was a great, reasonable opportunity to interact with him. And then I asked the key question, "Well, Rob, it was great to meet you. Who else here should I plan to meet that I for sure need to meet?" What I really asked was, "Who do you consider important enough for a first timer to go meet?" Because I admitted to being a first timer, a stranger. I'm from somewhere else. I don't know anybody. Who would you tell me to go meet? Instantly, you need to go meet this guy. Okay, great. Who else? Now, I actually happen to already know that guy. I didn't know he was going to be there, but it turns out I knew that other guy because I come to these things and ask questions. "Oh, you need to go meet this one over here and this lady over there." And then I went to those people and I said, "Hey, Rob over here said I should meet you." I asked him who are the most important people I needed to meet here. He said you. Oh, wow, awesome. "Well, what is your interest in real estate?" Blah, blah, blah. They talked for a second and they also asked me what my interest was. Half of them did, half of them didn't. And that's not the point. I wanted to hear what their interest was, make a note of it, get their business card, make notes on it, because I can't remember after meeting more than three of these people. "Thanks for meeting me, Shelley. Who else would you suggest I meet here tonight?" And one of them looked around the room and was very careful to give me the right suggestion. And that's what I wanted. And then I go to each person and meet one after another after another. And then within 30 minutes, I'd already talked to the key players. I was getting right to the meat of the matter. Wanted to know who the players were. Did I meet all the players? No, but I knew who a good chunk of them were. And I'd met 12 key critical people. I'd met multiples that were lenders, a property manager, another one that was a wholesaler, and another one that was just a buy and hold kind of guy who was a connector. All those people were valuable to me. So the next time I'm in town, I already have a few faces that I know, and I spent time connecting with them and letting them tell me about themselves. And so that was the beginning of the relationship. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just I'm eager to dive into this because and you touched on it a couple of times, but I think it is really important. In especially in real estate, it is so centered around relationships. And it's easy to look at, if you have a spreadsheet of lenders, let's say, or you have a spreadsheet of property managers or a spreadsheet of contractors, and you got to reach out to every single one of them. It can very quickly turn into or start to seem like it's something where and I used this word earlier, you're shopping, right? But what you don't want to fall into is shopping and forgetting to treat people like people, right? Because when people give me a call, if we have something that immediately we recognize as something in common between the two of us, it just makes that relationship, it starts it much sooner and it starts it off on the right foot. And therefore, we're all human, right? So it's going to carry a lot of weight in determining whether or not we end up building a long-term relationship or doing business together. And so I think that is a really important point that you just made there. Now, that kind of brings me to another topic that I wanted to talk to you about, which is your background in building credibility packages. And maybe you can talk about it from the perspective of when you were first getting started and you were going to people to potentially borrow money. And if that's not something that you want to talk about, maybe you can talk about it from your position as a lender and what you want to see from people who bring you a credibility package to borrow money.
Well, we can talk about both of those things, but creating the credibility package was an idea that an early mentor had given to me. And he said, "Think of these people that you're going to ask for a large amount of money from. Think of it from their perspective. You know what you want. You've got all these great ideas. You're going to do lease options and you're going to have non-refundable option fees. You're going to have rent credits and you're going to build equity and you're going to make new homeowners out of these people that need time to clean up their credit. And it's great. But what about the person you're asking for $100,000 from or $200,000 from? You need to get in their shoes for a minute and think about what it is they would want from you to prove you're worthy." I'm new to real estate and I have no plan and I just think I'm going to get rich and I need you to give me a bunch of money. That is not a good way to approach it. Or, hey, I heard you loan money. I've got this great project and the carpet's nice and it's over here and I need $250,000 and I know it'll be worth $450,000, but it's only worth $280,000 as compared to the neighbor properties down the street. But I know mine will be extra nice and I'll get 400 out of it. And by the way, I want to borrow that at a very low, below market rate because I'm awesome. That's the last phone call I got. That's not true. That was 2 calls ago. The last phone call I got, somebody called and said, "Hey, my name is whatever, and so, who I also didn't know, had given me your name." It was probably bad. Maybe my blood sugar was low at that moment, but he just started talking at me, and I said, "Hello, this is Robert," which is how I answered the phone. I just said it again. And then he starts all over again. Of course, I could hear him. Again, did I mention that might be bad? But he just vomited at me. I didn't know who he was. I had no context. I didn't know this alleged third party that had referred us. "Hello, this is Robert." And on the third time, he still kept going. So I hit the hang up button, which is what you would do. I allowed a certain amount of time. You know how it is when your mom calls and hello, hello, hello. And after a certain amount of seconds, it's socially okay to hit the hang up button and hang up on your mom. Well, of course, he immediately called back. Now, I didn't pick it up. Was that bad? No more of those. Are you serious? I don't even know you. Here are my rules. I'm going to do business with people that I know and I like and I trust. Isn't that how we all do business? If I don't know you and I don't like you and I don't trust you, why would I want to be around you? And flip that around, your lender. If your lender doesn't know you, if they don't like you, they don't trust you, why would they want to give you a big pile of money? It's really no different. So
So
the
what would sorry to interrupt you, Robert, but what would that ideal conversation sound like? Rather than somebody calling and giving a third party reference that to somebody that you may or may not know, how would somebody approach this conversation? How could that phone call have gone to have made you want to stay on the phone and potentially do business with that person?
I would want to already be aware of who they are. I get a lot of cold calls in where someone will just call out of the blue. Of course, now if somebody does that, then I've already given away my secret. "Hello, this is Robert." I just keep saying that for 12 seconds and hang up. Can't use that one anymore. I burned it here. Thanks, Chris. I guess it's my own fault for giving my tip away on that. I would like to know them in advance and be aware of them and what they're doing and how they are advancing themselves in the market. So, one person I can think of that I loaned money to, I really liked his particular story and his background and his goals. And it was not something 2 years prior to that I would have ever said, "Oh, I'll never do that." I would have just not done that deal. It was a lot of money. It was unusual terms, but I knew him and I liked him and began to trust him. And so when an opportunity came up, he called and we just started talking. And he said, "I've got this opportunity. It's X, Y, and Z characteristics. Is that something you might be interested in?" It was very short. And I said, "I don't know. Tell me more." And so I started taking notes. It was a good time. He'd asked first, "Is this a good time?" The guy that called the other day just started vomiting. He didn't say, "Hi, is this a good time?" When you and I got on here today, you said, "Hey, is this a good time?" You just be polite. "Is this a good time for you for us to have a few minutes of conversation about a potential loan?" "Hey, not right now. I'm doing XYZ at the haircut place. Give me an hour. I'll talk to you then." Or, "Can you send me an email?" Just be respectful. Ask and be respectful. So in that case with him, we talked a little more and I made some notes. And then the next day, we talked a little more and I made some more notes, had some more questions, and we went back and forth on it. It didn't happen in a 10-minute phone call. It happened over time with building up of trust. Because if I'm an individual lender, you're putting my family's financial well being on the line with your loan. So do you think I want to loan out? I always say, "You think I'm going to loan out my wife's money to you and let you lose it? My wife will kill me. She won't appreciate that at all." But what if that were actually true? Not the kill part, but be upset. Think about it. Chris, if you're loaning your money out, isn't that putting your family's financial well being on the line?
It is.
And I'm putting out my family's financial well-being on the line. And frankly, that borrower is too, because if something unfortunate happens, are we not going to try to use the legal system to go and collect on that or make that right? So it's a serious ask to go ask people for money, even a financial institution, let's say a bank or some other type of a formal hard money lender, large outfit. If somebody makes a bad deal with you, they could lose their job. That could affect their family's financial fortune. So it's a big ask you're asking for. Don't go into it lightly, go into it respectfully because that lender doesn't yet have the same excitement for your project that you do. So sometimes let the lender guide the conversation, but also be ready with the facts. Don't talk about the carpet because we don't care. How many garages it has? I don't care right off the bat. Hey, are you open to loaning on single family houses in this particular part of the country? Yes, no. Open with that. And then if yes, okay, well, what you got? Well, I've got a couple of single family houses and they're in disrepair, and I think I can get them at 40% of after repaired value and put another 20% of after repaired value in it. You as a lender would only be in at 60%, and I think I can sell it for 100% of value within 6 months. I understand that. I don't understand all the other words. I've got to take notes. You've got to draw me a picture. What's the ask?
Yeah.
Distill it down.
Right. And I think that the beginning of your answer kind of goes back to digging your well before you're thirsty, right? So it goes back to exactly what you were talking about when you went to this meetup for the first time. You asked who you should talk to, and you didn't just treat it as a transactional, I meet you and this is what I can do for you. What can you do for me? You introduced yourself and you started to understand who are these people and let them know who you are. And you don't have necessarily an opportunity for them right now, and they might not have an opportunity for you right now, but in 2 months or 6 months, or maybe it's 2 years from now, you're going to have that relationship and have already shook their hand and looked them in the eye and started building a relationship saying, hey, this is who I am and this is what I stand for and this is what I'm interested in. And I think that carries a lot of weight. Now, obviously, sometimes people are going to call with an immediate opportunity, right? So somebody's, and I get these calls a lot. I've never met somebody, and I don't know anybody necessarily that they know. They come across us on the internet and they have a property under contract and they want to borrow money. So in that case, I think it hits on that second part of your answer, the second half of your answer, where you're presenting the facts, but you're also presenting yourself, right? This is who I am. This is what I can offer. And this is the opportunity that I have. And then flip it if you're the person calling. And I really like the way that you presented this, Robert, and think about, okay, what is the lender getting out of this? But also, what kind of risk are they taking? And I think a lot of people, again, myself included, I'm not talking at anybody or calling anybody out here. This is a mistake that I've made plenty of times. I'll call a lender and I'll know that I need something from them and I'm in a hurry because I got to close in a week and it's an opportunity that I don't want to lose because it's got a lot of upside. And I forget about the fact that they're taking risk too, right? And that there's a lot of considerations that they have to make on their end. And then I get hung up on terms and then I get hung up on all this and all that. But realistically, if they can provide a good service and I can then end up with an opportunity that I wouldn't otherwise have, maybe it's a win-win. And I would much rather do business with somebody that I know, like, and trust as a borrower, but also as a lender, than haggling over, a few processing fees or a few interest rates or interest
Yeah,
rate points
fit's
or what.
not going to matter way down the road. That's another thing too. If you're easy to work with on the first initial contact, let me flip that around. If you're a pain to deal with on the first initial contact, what's going to happen on the 10th contact or when something doesn't go well? How's that going to go? Am I going to have a need for a bunch of migraine headache pills because you're now my newest pain in the rear? I don't want to, no, I don't want to start with that. I
Yeah.
like the way you said that about I need a favor from them. I want to close quickly. Okay, what is it with handymen or general contractors? You can get good, fast, or cheap. You pick two. I never forgot that. Good, fast, or cheap. Pick two. So if I want good and fast, well, it's not going to be cheap. But it doesn't matter because you said it. It's an opportunity that was going to slip through my fingers if I didn't have the good and the fast come in. Who really cares about the cheap? Because if some kind of fee or some kind of interest rate is really going to wreck your deal, well, number one, then why didn't you already have the money piled up? That's your fault. You didn't dig your well before you're thirsty. But okay, why does that become my problem? Why is your deal going to falter because of paying, I'm gonna make up a huge number, 20% instead of 10? Really? You've got that little margin in there that 10 or 20% over a 6 month period is going to make that much difference? Maybe you need to go look at your deal again. If the financing will kill your deal, maybe it's not a deal.
And most people who listen to the show know that I'm a lender. I'm also an investor. I'd say I'm an investor first, but I'm also a lender. Robert, you lend money out to people. And so what I want to avoid here is it's obviously very easy for us to take this perspective and say, "Oh, well, why does it matter?" right? Because we're going to be able to provide a great service and you're going to get what you want at the end of the day. What I want to recognize here is that investors are in this business to make money, right? That's inherently why we're all here. We want to make money. We want to build a nice nest egg for our family, and hopefully, Robert, like you, build a passive income stream that is allows us to have a little bit more time freedom and time with our family. So I recognize that, and obviously, it's very important. When I am refinancing a property on the back end, I am very cognizant of the rates and the points and the fees and everything that comes up. I want to flip it and think about this too, because I think this is an important point. As the lender, I am also willing, on the inverse, to lend out at a little bit of a cheaper rate or less points to somebody who is very, very easy to work with. If I've done 5, 10, 15 deals with somebody and they've brought me everything that they need to bring me. We've had great conversations. We've developed an outstanding relationship. When problems come up, they tell me, we work it out. Am I gonna be really hard pressed if they bring me a deal at 71% LTV and they want 12% interest instead of 13, or they want 1 point instead of 2 points? Probably not, because I know that I'm gonna be able to just look at their deal, underwrite it pretty quickly, and that they're gonna perform. And if anything major comes up, I know we're gonna talk about it and we're gonna find a way through.
Right.
Now, the opposite is also true. Like you just said, if it's going to be an absolute pain in my butt and, we're going to do one deal and maybe they want to do more deals in the future, am I going to be so inclined to give them wiggle room on the LTV or to give wiggle room on the amount that we're charging? Probably not, because we also have 5 other people over here who are bringing us projects and it's going to be a lot less of a pain. So I just think, again, and this is a common theme in almost every podcast conversation that I have, or that I do here, is relationships. And I really like that you hit on that. I just think it's very, very important. And it works both ways, as the borrower, but also as a lender, or whoever you are in a partnership, if you're not one of those two things.
I had one person I loaned money to, and I wasn't warned, and I didn't detect early on that the negotiation was going to continue for the entire life of the loan. It was ongoing. It was call me and I want to talk. And it was hello and nice stuff. But every month it was a time tax on me that I could not collect in the rate. And I did not want to spend my time that way. So it was a time tax. It was negotiation. It was a fight all the time. And then even in the end, when it was done, there was a almost an hour phone call arguing with me over, well, it should have been this way, it should have been that way. No, you're on the do not loan to ever again list because you're too hard to work with. That's just not what I want to spend my time on. Let's give another example. Tenants. If you rent to someone and they're easy to work with and they get along with their neighbors and they pay on time as they've agreed to, great. If you've got a resident in a house and they're a pain and every month they're texting you and whining and not paying on time and they're tearing stuff up and their kids are making the neighbors mad, do you want to renew that lease? Do you want to renew that relationship? No. Life is short. Be easy to work with.
Again, same on the inverse too, right? If you're going to borrow money from somebody and they're asking for things that are unnecessary, or they're jerking you around, or they're not giving you all the information that you feel you need to get to the closing table, or they're setting unrealistic expectations, then don't work with them either, right? It works both ways, and I really
It
like
does
that
work
about the
both
market.
ways.
It's efficient, right? If you're a lender, you find the people who are easy to work with, and if you're a borrower, you find the lenders who are easy to work with. So it works both ways, right? We don't, as lenders, we make our own rules, but we don't make the rules that rule the real estate world, right? You as the borrower also make the rules by deciding who you bring your business to.
That's correct. That's correct. I had another one I'm thinking of where we did one deal together, and I don't think he properly understood what risk he was presenting that I was trying to make sure I was compensated for. And then when the second opportunity came around, actually some time had passed and I knew there was potentially a second opportunity because we'd had a prior conversation. And I said, hey, are you looking to borrow again? No, no, I'm very premium now because I've done this before, and so I command a lower price. That was different words, but that was the gist of it. Oh, really? So I'm going to extend to you, let's say, $250,000, putting my family's financial future on the line for you, hoping that you will deliver again, but I have to pay my cost of funds about equal to what you want me to loan it to you at. So I've done all the work to build this over here and create, in this example, a line of credit to make sure I can loan to others. And the rates have changed, and I'm really getting nothing for making you a loan. Well, how's that a good deal for me? It's not a win-win. Well, I can get it elsewhere cheaper. Okay, fair enough. I actually like the person. I said, good for you. Unfortunately, that's just how many other people can do that out there. That was very, in my opinion, transactionally focused rather than relationally focused. I didn't say you had to do all your loans with me, but if the shoe were on the other foot, I would have kept me as a lender if I were him, because you always need to know people with money. Even if on my loan it was higher that he paid me than he could pay his grandma or whoever else was giving him the lower rate money, you always want to maintain those relationships. I will borrow even if I don't need it just to keep the relationship active and let that lender make money on it, because they'll remember me when I really need a larger amount of money, or it's time to renew that line of credit, or it's time to renew that relationship. They're going to go look and see, has this been profitable? How much time have I put into this? Has he performed as agreed?
Before we transition into something that you and I chatted about called the 5 levels of mentorship, as we kind of wrap up this conversation talking about presenting a credibility package, can you talk a little bit tactically and tangibly, what can somebody provide to a lender in terms of documents or what they're sending over in an email? What kind of stuff can they present to, a real estate investor? What can they present to a lender to immediately make that lender not fall in love with them, but fall in love with the idea of doing business with them?
Let's say first and foremost, be a professional. State your case, get to the point. I would be prepared to put together your package of tax returns, a financial statement, even if they are not sophisticated enough as a lender. Like I gave grandma as the example. Grandma may not be sophisticated enough to ask for your financial statement, and maybe you don't want to give that to grandma. That might be awkward, perhaps, but why not have it ready? Grandma might be more sophisticated than you realize. And if you offer it and she takes it, she may understand it and say, wow, grandson, or granddaughter, you're fantastic. This is great. You said you wanted how much? 250,000? I'll do that, but there's another million behind that I can loan you that you don't even know about. You never know what the lender's capability or capacity is. One of the things I've considered with my lending relationships that I have with others is the purpose of this loan is to get to the next loan. Today, I know what the opportunity for me is, and I know this is the constraints of the current opportunity, but tomorrow's might be this. It might be huge. So today's loan is to get me to tomorrow's loan. Today's relationship is to get me to tomorrow's opportunity. So tax returns, financial statement, pictures of the project, maybe copies of the agreement that shows it's under contract. I know I looked at a company that was doing land entitlements, and the group of us that were evaluating that and doing our due diligence on it asked for copies of the agreements with the landowners, and we got them and we looked through them and we caught issues. And they said, oh, yes, we know what that is. And here, and they had a great explanation. They answered everything that we asked very professionally. We even met with them, professional all the way through. And as a result, their deal got funded. No problem. That relationship that I just referenced, they had all the documents ready. And then any other documents we asked for, they also provided those too. Don't complain and say, why would you want that? That's not a way to approach it. It may be fair to say, can I ask the intent and purpose behind that? Well, it's because of X, Y, and Z. And if you like that answer, then great. And if you say, that's outside my comfort zone, maybe it's not a match. And you said it well. The market drives it. The lender has a decision to make. The borrower has a decision to make. So you want to work
Yeah.
together. So you need your documents, you need your story, you need the overview, maybe a resume or CV or whatever we're calling it now, a one sheet on who you are and your background and what you've done. Remember my original image here of this, turn those things into a nice up to date bio on yourself and include a picture. I guarantee that no one else today that's been into your lender's office and has handed over, number one, are they handing over a package? And then much less is it going to have a picture of them in it. Probably you're the only one. And in my opinion, I want to be memorable. So they put my deal on the top of the pile and look at mine first because I'm easy to work with. I've got my stuff together and I'm professional.
Yeah, I love that. And I had a meeting today. We're recording on Thursday, February 29th. I had a meeting with a larger investor here in the area on February 27th. So this past Tuesday. And they put together one of the most impressive packages that I have ever seen for somebody who is bringing a proposal for us to lend on. They're bringing an opportunity, and we had chatted about it over the phone, but then we sat down in person and they just had all these details. They had already gotten an appraisal. They had their credit reports in there. They already had their PFS, their personal financial statements. They had a whole lot of stuff in there. They had a scope of work for the project, and with bigger line items that would normally, set off an alarm or at least be a yellow flag, they had asterisks there, and they had more details about why they're equipped to do a project like this and fix the foundation. And I'm not saying that every single package that somebody brings has to include all that info. I totally get that, especially if there's an existing relationship and you already know that somebody's capable of taking on a project. But I think if you're newer in real estate and you're bringing a project to a lender and hoping to get approved, and I know a lot of lenders out there who are the quote unquote go-to or best lenders, or maybe they're the cheapest, they will not work with people who are inexperienced. And so if you are inexperienced and you want to work with them, maybe you have one deal under your belt or zero, if you want to increase the likelihood of being approved and working with the quote unquote best lenders, depending on how you define that, then putting together a package with that level of detail is significantly going to improve the likelihood that they do business with you. And I'll speak for myself in saying that I'm much more likely to do business with somebody who's a first time investor and even more aggressive terms than I normally would write a loan for a first time investor if they're if our first interaction with one another is full of a lot of detail, full of a lot of information. Like you said, we're building a good relationship and the character is there on both ends.
Exactly. And never, ever tell a lie or fudge. I think other humans have a sense of when something is off, whether it's the hair standing up on the back of your neck, or hey, something here is just not right, or maybe if it's my case, I'm having trouble explaining the deal to my wife such that she says, "You're missing a lot of details here." And usually I'll say, "You're right." And as I hear myself telling it to you, I'm having trouble with what are these elements that normally should be there. And she'll say, "Yeah, yeah, that doesn't sound like a good deal. You're missing some info." And just the action of running it by her forces me to articulate it and describe it. And then I realize this is not a deal, or there's more info I need, or this looks good, let's do it. That's how a lot of these decisions will get made is, can the other side articulate to their boss if they have to go to another boss, or just have to write it up for their own records? Can it be easily documented? Some people understand that they need to leave a written legacy for those that come behind them. Whether we like it or not, we're all not getting out of this earth alive. At some point, you're going to pass on. You hope it's not today, you hope it's not tomorrow, but you're doing these deals with people. You need to write up something in writing of what happened, what the deal is. Maybe it's print an email where you went back and forth. One of the people that I worked with that I really know and like and trust, we would talk and then he would send it to me in an email to say, here's what we said. And I would print that and put it in his file. And so someone that came behind me, if I got dead or disabled, they could look at that and go, oh, okay, I see what the deal is. And then there were the documents behind it. So it's one thing to look at the documents, but what was the deal? What was the story? So you should be able to articulate that, if for no other reason, because your lender, if something happens to them and they're an individual, well, then what happens to your loan? You're making payments and they're cashing checks, and then you need a payoff and it's crickets. Well, Joe Blow, your lender just died. I don't know who you are. Man, you want them to have documentation. You want them to have the story of what's our deal and put it in a simple format. Don't go into long detail. I like how you said that with the asterisk, but I bet he could reduce it down to a few paragraphs or even a one sheet if that's what it took. I know a guy that raised $6 million off a one sheet PDF. There was a lot of supporting stuff, but off one sheet. we understood the deal and said, yes, this is worth looking at.
Wow. That's that's awesome, and I want to hear about that story. Maybe I can ask you about that after this call, and maybe we'll do another one. We can chat through that because that's awesome. That's awesome is an understatement. But two things that you said there. Well, actually, one thing that you said there, Robert, made me think about two ideas for people who might be prospective borrowers or maybe looking to build partnerships. First thing is, let's just stick in the realm of, let's say you're going to present a deal to a lender and you're hoping to increase your likelihood of them saying yes. And in our case, it's myself, my business partner, Grant. When we get a deal that comes in, we'll chat about it and we'll make a final decision. Normally, we're on the same page. If it's a cookie cutter deal and it's somebody we know, like, and trust, it doesn't even need that. But if it's a first time borrower bringing a deal that maybe has a little bit of hair on it, that's the exact conversation we're going to have is, hey, Grant, we just got this deal that came in. This
And
is
hair good, right? A little hair on the deal is not
correct.
considered the
Yeah,
best idea.
complexity,
Okay.
maybe it's a little bit more risk. So one thing that as you were saying that I think would be a good idea for people, especially if they're newer to this, would be grabbing a friend or a family member, or if it's a partner that you have that you invest with, and pitching to them as though they are the lender. And then they can help you fill in any of the gaps that there might be in information or in questions that a lender potentially might ask. And I think that's really helpful because anytime you start having a conversation or talking about something out loud rather than just playing it in your own head, I think you immediately start to notice when those gaps do exist. And if you don't have that luxury, let's just say, or maybe you're just nervous to actually pitch it to somebody, then even just writing it out in an
Write it
email.
out.
Maybe there's nobody
Write it out.
in the delivery line, like there's no email address in this send to line, but you're just typing it out in an email or in a Word doc and
Well,
you're
send it to
explaining
yourself.
this deal. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, send it to yourself. Put your own email in there. Go ahead. Keep going. That was a
Yeah,
great
I
thought.
know. That's really kind of that's the end of it there, right? The more you can write it out and take this abstract idea in your head of this great deal and you can put it on paper or put it out into the world and just, and talk to somebody else who's listening, I think that helps you understand what questions might be asked and what gaps there might be to fill in.
So in my case, I think in pictures and I like colors. So these are some of my Sharpies. It's like kindergarten over here. I have lots of paper, which is where I grabbed and wrote this out. I have notepads. I've got things I'm working on. And when I want to be creative and start writing things down, I will actually use the colored Sharpies to put it all down because that helps me envision it better. You need to think of what your Sharpie thing is for you. If you're listening and you say, that sounds weird. Well, maybe you like colored highlighters. Well, I don't know what it is for you. Maybe stick men, maybe army men or race cars, or maybe it's not visual for you at all. Maybe it's words and you write it out. But the point is, figure out what works for you. And that will change over time. I can't tell you I've been doing the Sharpie thing for my whole entire life. I just learned that over time. Crayons, maybe. I joke about getting crayons and a piece of paper. What I'm really saying, if I say that to you, is I don't understand it. I need you to make that where I can visualize it. So the crayons and the paper is really be sassing, saying, I don't get it. Or I think there are other people listening. If we're in a group call, I don't think they get it. You need to break this down into more basic because you're talking over here and it's not the language I'm understanding. You need to break it down and convey your message a little bit better.
Right. And I think that's helpful for both parties. I think it's helpful for whoever you're presenting to, but I also think it's helpful for you as the investor to really think through all the details and make sure that you're not missing anything. So
Well,
as we wrap this, oh,
your other person's your best advocate too. So the lender, the say if it's a bank, whoever you're talking to at the bank may or may not be the final decision maker, but they will be your advocate. In your example, you mentioned a buddy that you can sit and talk with. They're going to be your best advocate and look for your best interest. Why not give them everything they need to help you out?
completely agree.
Here to
That's a
help you.
great point. So as we wrap this up, I do want to get into, if it's okay with you, Robert, the 5 levels of mentorship, which you mentioned. And I know that you have something relatively prepared, right? If I'm not misspeaking here. And so we don't necessarily have to get into all the nitty gritty detail here, but can you chat a little bit about the 5 levels of mentorship and the importance of having a mentor if you're new in real estate investing?
Yes. I see in my volunteer role with my real estate investor association people coming in, whether it's in writing or in person, and saying, where can I find a mentor? I need a mentor. They might use the word coach, but it's kind of all the same for this. I think it means at least 5 different potential definitions. And the word mentor is just one of those words that can mean different things to different people. But I thought about that and saw the different people over the years that came through and thought, what is a mentor? What does it really mean? What could it mean? Coach, advisor, friend, community, and proximity are the five different levels. So let's talk about those. The coach is what I would say is the highest trust. Maybe a financial exchange has occurred, which could be construed as you wrote them a big check, paid them a lot of money, you're in some sort of a monthly recurring financial relationship. But if you want this type of relationship, you usually can't just say you want it, you have to qualify for it. So it's not just that you qualify the coach and say, I want to work with them, or you qualify that mentor, but they will qualify you because anyone that does this with a serious level of getting results for the people that work with them, they want it to fit. They do not want to have someone in their coaching program or even, frankly, spend that much time and emotional investment with that's not a good fit. They don't want it any more than you don't want it. It's definitely a two-way street. So, very high level of commitment on the part of both the coach and the person receiving the mentorship. It is the top level of trust, the top level of involvement. You might have their personal cell phone. You may have a scheduled time where you interact with them each day, each week, each month. It's high level. Right below that, I would say, is an advisor. Very high trust, someone whose counsel you would definitely consider very seriously. So, one of my earliest mentors was an advisor. I did not pay him money, but I took him to eat at his favorite restaurant anytime and every time he wanted. Now, he did not abuse that at all, but I quickly learned that I was getting a screaming deal because his time was probably worth a huge amount of money. I probably couldn't have paid him because I didn't have the resources, and I probably couldn't have afforded it for the value that I got. And if all he wanted was for us to go to this one restaurant and I picked it up no matter what he wanted to buy, it was not an expensive restaurant. I covered it. And sometimes I would call and say, hey, can we go to the truck stop? That was code for, can we go talk? And I would go to his house sometimes. And if it was around a meal time, we would go eat, whatever. That was a high level advisor. And I trusted so much of what he said because I knew he was investing in me because I was his legacy. His advice is still what I live with and work with and operate from today. And he's not with us anymore. And that was a big loss for me when I lost that advisor. The third one is the friend group, or what you might call your posse. Maybe I need a better word for that. But these are people you would go to that you regularly associate with. If you wanted to dye your hair a different color, you might go to them and get your opinion. It's people that you would have a certain level of comfort asking things to, but you wouldn't air your huge dirty laundry. You wouldn't air your financial dirty laundry to, but you would trust their advice on a lot of things because you're regularly with them. They know who your kids are, you know who their kids are. So you have a high level of trust, but it's lower than what I would call an advisor level of trust. Next one down from that would be community. In my example I've given here today is your fellow members of your real estate investor association or your meetup, where you gather with folks for a conference and you're getting some training. You all have similar interests, but Chris, I may not know whether you have any kids or what their names are, how old they are, and you may not know for me. But we're in the community, we see each other, and we have a certain level of trust and relatability because we're going down the same path together. So some trust, not terribly deep conversations. And then the last level would be proximity people. These are people that are just around you at the time you're making a decision. It could be people at the Department of Motor Vehicles. It could be people in line with you at a fast food place, and you say, hey, we're here at Wendy's and I see they've got fish. Have you had that fish sandwich, sir? Oh, I had it. It's great. I'm here to order another one. Well, I took advice from that mentor because he was right next to me and he said he'd had it. And it was good. It's low trust. You're never going to see him again. But that proximity decision making, you do a lot of and you don't realize it. So, coach, top, then advisor, then friend group, then community, then proximity. And so, for me, if I were trying to pick out a mentor, I would start with my goals and what outcome I wanted. What time am I willing to invest to get that outcome? What money am I willing to invest to get that outcome? And then am I the kind of person that can bare my soul to somebody else, either in person or online on a Zoom meeting, or does it have to physically be in person? Some people are just not comfortable doing things outside of an in person conversation. Or you may not want to do it at all. You may be an extreme introvert and not want to talk to anybody. You need to decide what you want, set the outcome, and then decide what you want to invest to try to get that outcome. And then look around for the mentor that fits that.
You kind of touched on this when you were talking about your advisor, but when somebody's just starting out, a lot of the time, the limiting factor is what could I possibly do to add value to somebody who seems like they have everything, or maybe they have everything that I want in my situation. So how could I possibly provide anything of value to them? What would you recommend to somebody in that situation to make sure that it's not a transactional and just take, but you can also give as part of that relationship?
Remember early on, I showed you this identifying your skills. Sit down and do that. It is hard and people aren't going to want to do it, but sit down and list your personal or professional accomplishments. List the activities you enjoy. What are you interested in studying, learning about? What are examples of compliments you have received about yourself or your work? One of the things I can think of is this one lady that I know. She says her value is my husband is a general contractor. I've dealt with those sorts of people before. I can read a scope of work. I can tell you if the money's spot on or not, and I'm boots on the ground in XYZ city and state, and I'm eager and willing to spend time with you. And in return, go look at your project, go put out lock boxes, help you with these other items that I'm good at. So she articulates what value she could be to me. And I can tell you, if I ever find a deal in that city and state and I want boots on the ground, she is the first one I'm calling because she's told me her value. And I don't otherwise have a deal right now to work with her on. But if I did, because I know her and because every week she's telling me that on this weekly call that we get on, I know that she's the go-to person if I have that. And I might normally say no to a deal in that area, but I'll say yes, maybe, because I know her and I believe she can deliver on her promise.
I think a lot of times when you're in the beginning stages of your career, what you have to be able to trade is time. Whereas somebody else who is a little bit more experienced, they might have money or resources or knowledge, but they don't have time. And so it creates a good fit and a good potential relationship there with somebody who can spend a lot more time doing stuff that might not be super highly valued for somebody who is more experienced in terms of what they want to spend their time on. And they can trade you spending your time for their knowledge or their resources or their money or whatever it might be. And I think that a lot of times is the best way to get started. What do you think about that, Robert?
I would agree with that. And one of the things I've mentioned offering to take somebody to lunch, that did not come right early on in the relationship because I'm sure you've gotten it too. Hey, can I take you to coffee and pick your brain? Hey, can I take you to eat and pick your brain? That is not an offer that's valid or valuable to everyone. It is to some, it's not to others. And again, this might be crass, but if someone has the free time to go eat with you and stay for 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 hours, is that advice you want? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. But what's going to be the value for them? Maybe they want to pour into somebody newer in the industry or younger than they are. They want to share knowledge. Okay, that's a valid reason. And then they would be a good counterpart. If it's something where you haven't figured out yet, but they're really actually going to spend a lot of that time trying to sell you on something that they really want to offer you, okay, well, I'm not saying that's bad, but you ought to know that going in. So the let me buy you a coffee and keep you for 90 minutes, well, think about it. For them, they've got to get up, take a bath, get their clothes cleaned, comb their hair, then go there. That's an hour. Then they're going to stay there 90 minutes and then they've got to go back home. So, how much time have you just taken out of the middle of their day? Can you do your conversation in shorter bursts, maybe before you make that ask? In my case, if someone will ask me that, I'll say, hey, I tell you what, I have time when I meet with people at this day of the month, and I'm at my RIA meeting. And usually between here and here, I sit in this part of the room and I eat, and I'd be happy to talk to you then. And invariably, most of those people never bother to show up. So what if I had gone to coffee with them? They would have spent 5 hours and would have never done a thing. If they can't even show up when I give them a time, what kind of relationship building is that? So those that do, their question can usually be answered within a few minutes. Or I'll say, oh, I don't know anything about that, but I know so and so right over. In fact, there he is right there. You see the guy with the blue hat? He totally knows that. In fact, I'll go over and introduce you right now. Man, that was so much more high value then us now being awkwardly at coffee, and I say, well, I don't know anything about that. Oops. So I let them meet other people in the community and I serve as a connector. Maybe I might know about it, maybe not, but look for smaller interactions that are low risk, low tax, not taxing of time or money of either party. Look for the lower risk relationships and interactions first, and then build on those. And you'll figure out, oh, yeah, I see Joe here at every meeting, and Joe's a great guy, and I love interacting with him. Or Sue, she's always got a bright smile. I love interacting with her. I want to spend some more time with her. And she shows up here every month. I can count on her like clockwork. I like that. And start with that.
That is great advice. And for anybody listening, just to prove that we are not here talking at you, but we are just having a conversation, I made this mistake 2 weeks ago. I quite literally did exactly what Robert just told everybody not to do. I reached out to a guy who does a lot of business here in Cincinnati. We've had a few conversations on Facebook, and I wanted to take the relationship hopefully to the next level and meet in person. And I offered to buy him coffee. And I even thought to myself, hopefully that coffee is valuable enough for him to, take this time out of his day. And guess what happened? He didn't answer. And I don't blame him.
Hello? Hello?
So I think that's really good advice. I could have used that advice a couple weeks ago, Robert. But for anybody listening,
So
we're
did it
not
just
immune to this
drop
either.
with that one? Did it just drop? You made no connection? Do you want to know how to save that?
I would love to know how to save that.
So do you have a way to message him? It's a guy,
Yes,
right? Or
it
it
is.
doesn't matter, guy or girl, but do you have a way to send a message to them?
I do.
Find out where they're going to be. There is an upcoming conference in April that you and I are familiar with. I'm going to be there. I've made no secret that I'm going to be there. If you've got a question or an issue, guess what? I've got to be stuck there. I'm sorry, privileged to be there for 3 whole days. I'm stuck there with my foot nailed to the floor for 3 days. I did it on purpose. And I told you where I'm going to be. That's called Robert's office hours are at this conference. So find out where this guy likes to go and go there and look to spend time there. I have found I've had so many conversations in the hall at a conference or a gathering of other people that are hugely valuable. And I go with intentionality sometimes to a conference, not really for the content, because you get to a certain point and you know most of it. There'll always be a few things you don't know, but you'll know a good chunk of it. But the conversations in the hall may be what you need to have right now. That may be the key thing you're missing. So even if you're experienced and you think, I know everything they're going to say there. Yeah, you probably do, but you don't know what could happen in the hallway. You don't know that Chris Casella is there waiting to talk to you. And as soon as he sees you come around the corner, he's going to jump on you and he's going to say to you,
Why didn't you get coffee? No, I'm just kidding.
no, don't say that. Because then you're going to force them into I think I told you before we got on, I had a call and it just hit me at a wrong time and I didn't handle it the best. And I'm going to need to call and apologize later. My blood sugar was low and I had a problem going on and I need to recant my performance and behavior in that. But don't jump on people as they come around the corner. But also read the room, read the social cues. Sometimes, let's give the example of the one I don't want to loan to again, Princess Negotiator. She has tried that tactic with me to come to things where she knows I am and start talking to me. And this is the read the room point. When I move away, let me go away. That's reading the room. Don't keep coming. And she doesn't. She gets it. But I've seen it where they don't leave the person alone. And so then you have to resort to drastic measures, which is, can you excuse me? I've got to go to the bathroom. Now, if I'm a guy and you're a guy, we're going to the bathroom, the worst thing that can then be said is, I'll go with you. My friend Anthony says, I don't want to talk to anybody in the bathroom. That's illegal. Or whatever he says. He doesn't like that. But you're trying to break away because you don't want to have an ongoing relationship. There are some times where you need to read the room and be cognizant of that. Most of the time, that's not true. Plan on a short interaction, get ready with your value, express it, and see if there's any kind of response that happens. And then if not, well, maybe they're doing you a favor.
Love that. Abundance mindset. If it's not right, then maybe it's just leading to something better. Robert, this
Right.
has been incredibly valuable. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit down with us and to impart your knowledge on us, on myself and the listeners. Where can people go to find you if they want more information or if they want to get in touch?
My email should be there under my name. Cashbuyer@comcast.net would be a good contact.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I will leave that information down below. And that's all we got for you guys today, guys and gals. That's all we got for you today. If you enjoyed this, and feel free to leave a review, and I'll leave my contact info in the description below as well, including Sharper Capital's link to our website. And I hope to hear from you in the next one.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.